Hi, I'm Kelly Vaughn, and this is Inside Indy. And we're going to start today's show off with, how's your marriage? And what is the state of marriages in Indiana as a whole? And we have a couple of guests in our studio. I call them experts on the institution of marriage. They are Dave Rozelle, who is a minister, and you are with the Indiana Healthy Marriage and Family Coalition?
Correct.
Okay. And then his wife, Jerry Rozelle, who is the co-chairman of IHMFC Black Marriage Day Celebration Committee, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
for having us.
Now, I have actually done some work with you guys before under John Gerton Jr., right? Okay. And I know he was a big proponent of your efforts. Explain to people, Dave, the mission of the organization.
Well, the mission of the, and to say the Indiana Healthy Marriage and Family Coalition is a mouthful, so we shorten it by calling it the IHMFC,
Okay.
which is in itself a mouthful. But the mission is to promote and encourage healthy marriages as the basis for a healthy family. We are unapologetically a faith-based organization, and we believe in marriage from a biblical perspective. And so that tells us that you have a husband and a wife who then have children, and the family is created from that union. And so the children, being the extension of the marriage, get their cues from mother and father. And so if you have a dysfunctional or unhealthy marriage, it tends to produce dysfunctional, unhealthy children. Because of trends in our country where divorce rates have been on the rise, fewer people are getting married, or they're marrying much later in life, then all those factors have an effect upon our children and therefore in our communities and our society. And so we believe that if we want to have a positive impact on our communities and our societies, we can do that by having a positive impact on families. And again, we believe that the marriage is the basis of the family. So healthy marriage, healthy family.
Wow. Okay. So I want to throw this at, and either one of you can chime in. So what is unhealthy, you think, in our society today about our marriages? Jerry, you want to tackle that one first?
Sure. Unhealthy marriage looks different for different people. Some of the things that we have seen are some abuse, verbal or physical abuse. A lot of times the children are exposed to this, and that has a negative impact on them and their development. And it also translates into them acting up in school, and it just has a negative effect on our community at large.
Okay. You want to add to that, Dave?
Well, yeah, one of the things that we as citizens are concerned about is crime in our communities. And crime statistics have also been on the rise. And there's a correlation in that the criminals are becoming younger and younger. You just turn on the evening news and you see the faces that are put up on the screen of suspects or people who have been charged or convicted, and they're getting younger and younger. The one thing that they all have in common is that they're tied to a family somewhere. And so by the time they get to a point where they are involved in criminal activity, that's an indication that there's been some dysfunction somewhere in the family in which they were raised. Those in the audience who are Christians and who know the Bible know that the wisdom writer says, train up a child in the way that he should go, and when he's old, he will not depart from it. And so if you train up children in an environment where they respect people, where the basis of their relationships is love, and they respect their elders, then it's more likely that they're not going to be the ones who the police have to chase around and try to keep them from committing crime or catch them when they do commit crime. So we want to try to have an impact on the community so that it permeates not just what goes on in the house, but what happens outside the house, particularly in the behavior of the children. But as Jerry indicated, dysfunction takes on many faces. We don't have the Leave It to Beaver family anymore. You know, we don't have the Huxtable family necessarily. And the divorce rates, as I mentioned earlier, have been on the rise. There's disagreement about exactly what the rate is. And by the way, Indiana hasn't, by law, reported divorce statistics since 1980. Now, the Centers for Disease Control collects and collates and then distributes marriage and divorce statistics for all the states. And the last time that they reported, Indiana had a 3.3% divorce rate, which is, according to at least one ABC report, the 10th highest in the nation.
Wow.
Yeah, and so that means that broken families produce broken children. And so one of the things that we try to do with the Indiana Healthy Marriage and Family Coalition is encourage people, first of all, to get married before you start having children, but regardless, because the reality is you have a lot of cohabitating couples who have children. So, okay, you didn't get married, but you still have children, and you still got to raise those children in such a way where they become, productive citizens. So, the state of marriage nationwide is about 50-50, when it comes to healthy marriages. As I said, a lot of young people are waiting longer to get married, in their 30s and sometimes even in their 40s before a first marriage. And then you have people who never get married, they just cohabitate. So all those types of factors skew the statistics, but the bottom line is, whereas marriage has seen in the past to be good and proper, it's not the first choice for people anymore.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So it's at least people's attitudes about it
Right.
Have changed. So this is an interesting conversation because I wrote down some of the key words you talked about earlier, and I can see now this is probably going to be a 2-segment show instead of a 1-segment show. Training a child in the way that he or she should go. And I just want to share the story to get your response to it. Maybe a decade ago, I was thinking about being a foster parent, and I had to go take some courses. And there was this one woman there who was talking about these 4 foster children who she had adopted. And again, I'm not saying that most foster kids are like this, because there are some wonderful kids out there who need homes. But she was saying that these 4 children, because they didn't have the proper training, had this thing where they would put, I hate to even say this, feces on the wall all the time. And she said, no matter how much I tried to train them, and I don't know, maybe we're probably 7, 8, 10, but this was something apparently you learn when you're 1 or 2. And just listening to her, I realized that we've learned so much from our parents, and we take so much for granted in terms of even how you pick up a fork and eat, how you comb your hair, how you brush your teeth. We assume because we've been doing that, we don't remember when somebody was training us, that somebody taught us that.
Absolutely.
Just the smallest things. And when she said she couldn't teach them after a certain age, it tells you how important when in those early stages, those basic things are. Even going to work every day, we just think we get up and go. If you didn't get up and go to school every day, you couldn't get up and go later in life. Would you agree, or am I on the right?
Exactly, yes. And studies have shown, as far as the development of children, from 0 to 5 is when they learn most of everything that they know about being a human,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and like you said, we learn how to brush our teeth, how to comb our hair, how to get dressed, how to tie up your shoes. And so all of that time is a very crucial time, and we're finding that kids are not getting the support and that developmental stage, all the nourishment that they need at that time.
Right.
Because families are broken when the fathers aren't present. That's another, deficit that we're seeing in families where mom is the only one at home and she has to go to work and not able to be there, and we're putting our children in daycare and nobody's present for the kids, and so that does have an impact on our children.
And we also don't have the extended family support networks that we used to have, where there was at least a grandmother who was able to provide early child care while mom and dad worked. And it wasn't just, I'm babysitting, but they were actually grandparenting. And so they became the teachers of the children prior to them even, entering the school system. And so I know when I was growing up, and I'll date myself, I grew up in the 50s and in the 60s, I knew my alphabet, I knew how to count, I knew how to, do simple math and colors and things like that before I ever even got to kindergarten, But nowadays, that's not the case. We have so many children who are showing up, to kindergarten who, they can't spell their own name. They really have no even rudimentary reading skills. And so they start off behind the power curve, so to speak. And then as they progress in school, they're not maybe on the same level as some of their counterparts. And so they act out, in order to mask the fact that they're not there yet. And so we have, as you know, some 35-year-old grandmothers now,
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
So.
who really can't teach what they don't know.
Okay, so I want to talk more about kids. We're going to take a break and come back in the second segment, more about kids and why they're acting up. And I want to talk about divorce and also the crime issue. You mentioned what's behind that. But very quickly, if you could tell us, Jerry, about, I want to get this out here several times, about the Black Marriage Day celebration seminar on Saturday?
Yes, Saturday, March the 25th. It starts at 10 a.m. and it goes on until 2:30 p.m. And it's going to be a great time. We'll have a panel, and people will be able to come and ask questions. It is free. We will have a light lunch served, and also we'll have some fun as well in celebrating Black marriages.
Okay, and that's called Making Love Last, Celebration and Education.
Yes.
Everybody's invited, though.
Everyone,
Right.
Okay,
yes.
okay, so we're going to take a break. We'll talk more about that event and more after this. And we're back, and we're giving you some advice on how to make your love last, your marriage, especially with the upcoming Making Love Last Celebration and Education Seminar. We're with Dave and Jerry Rozelle of the Indiana Healthy Marriage and Family Coalition. And we're continuing our conversation on the big event. So tell us, if people were to attend, Dave, what they can expect.
Well, as I said, it's a seminar. In years past, and the Indiana Healthy Marriage and Family Coalition has joined in the nationwide celebration of Black Marriage Day that began in like 2001 by Nisa Muhammad, an activist on the East Coast. And in the past, we basically have had the celebration on a Sunday afternoon in a church where our member churches have nominated couples for various awards that we would give out. And so on that Sunday afternoon, they, all the couples who were nominated would gather, and then we would announce the winners, and very nice program. But this year, when Jerry and I were asked to co-chair the event, Jerry said to me, "Baby, I want to do something different." And I agreed. And so rather than have a church program, we decided to have a seminar format where we could invite some subject matter experts to come and talk about the different aspects of marriage, and where we could have a panel discussion where couples who have been married for varying lengths of time can come and share their experiences and answer questions from people who want to know, well, how do you stay married for 50 years? You know, what are the challenges that you've had, and how have you been able to overcome those challenges? Not only in your marriage relationship, but in raising your children and those types of things. And so the format of the church program didn't lend for that. So that's why we decided to have a seminar. And so we've got 4 subject matter experts
All right.
in the field. We have Dr. Linda Bell, who's a PhD sociologist and a professor of sociology at IUPUI, and an author. She's going to be there. We asked her to, talk about roles in traditional and non-traditional marriages, and also the impact that the 21st century society is having on marriages. We also have Dr. Lorraine Blackman, who is a retired PhD social worker. She taught at the IU School of Social Work at IUPUI, and she also is an author. In fact, she authored one of the curriculums that we teach at IHMFC, How to Make Your Good Thing Better. And so she's going to be there as well. Then we have, from a theological perspective, Dr. Alex Seawood, who is a family and marriage therapist with the Family and Community Partners organization. And so he's going to provide, a biblical perspective on marriage and family. And then lastly, we have of the offices of Pamela Grant Taylor, Ms. Taylor, who is a lawyer and has a family law practice here in Indianapolis. And so she's going to be able to talk about a lot of the legal aspects of marriage, recent Supreme Court decisions, what marriage looks like legally, and some of the effects that divorce, which is a legal matter, has on families. When you break up a marriage, you break up a family, and it often has a very negative effect upon children. And so those individuals are going to talk about marriage in those contexts. And then they will also be on a panel with, as I said, couples who've been married of varying lengths of time, and it'll give an opportunity for the audience to interact with them.
Oh, okay.
So it'll be a facilitated discussion where people can ask questions and get answers from those people on the panel.
Wow, that sounds awesome. So when it comes to Black marriage, how is it different from marriage in general, and what are the particular challenges that Black marriages face, do you think, or the things that might be unique to the Black culture?
Yes, I think we have some challenges. I can't think of.
Well, the thing, Kelly, is that we have to look at it from a historical perspective. Our experience on this continent started with slavery. And so where Africans were brought here to do slave labor, and they were, it was chattel slavery where they were property. And so they couldn't make a decision, I love you and I want to marry you, and then get married and start having a family. They belonged to somebody as property, and so they had to get permission to get married. And many of them were never actually given permission. They were actually just breeders. The slave owners wanted them to produce more slaves so they could have, more people working in the cotton and tobacco fields and what have you. And so even when 2 slaves fell in love and were allowed to have children, excuse me, oftentimes the slave owners would break those families up sell them off, sell the children off, and
Well, even if you
those
didn't
types
sell
of
them
things.
off and you were sleeping with one of the, like one of the slaves, then I would think that would upset the husband.
would
You know?
cause-
So
yes,
some of the things that we forget about, like when I
absolutely.
watch Roots, they don't really tell the real
Right.
story of like what really
Right.
happened,
Right,
like
right.
what are the emotions when something like that happens. And I've heard where the women feel angry at the black man because you didn't protect me, but he couldn't because he was probably going to die.
Exactly.
And then he's mad like, well, what did you go and have this guy's baby? And that's not
Right.
really what she was trying to do. But
Right.
because you got other people running your lives, but
Yeah.
those emotions are still real and very raw. And
Very.
that's the thing I don't like about some of the motion pictures I see.
Yeah.
They never really tell that side of the story
Yeah.
about how that feels.
And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
as you can see, we kind of started out in a deficit, started out with a lot of dysfunction. And we've had to overcome a lot of those things in order to have healthy marriages, healthy families. And the one thing is that we as a people, Americans of African descent, we wouldn't have made it this far had it not been for a strong family unit, that helped to protect the children, helped to protect the wives and the husbands. And so once the legalities of things change, and we didn't have to have master's permission to get married, then many people, as a show of their independence and a show of their freedom, then did what they couldn't do before, and they got married. And so, but they brought along with them all of that baggage,
Right. And let me say something about the baggage, because a lot of times people, again, I try to play the devil's advocate, or somebody might be watching and they go, well, that was 200 years ago, or 150 years ago. But we don't say that about child abuse. Like, we know when there's sexual abuse in a family that could go back 5 or 6 generations,
Yeah.
whether it's especially sexual abuse, physical beatings. And so you wonder why, Bill or Sue is messing with this child. But if you could actually trace it historically, it could be back as far as 1700 something. So why is it when we have abuse in general in the society and it's passed down from generation to generation, that some of those same dysfunctions, not to mention even the physical abuse that anybody historically has endured, whether it be slaves or it be people, no matter what color they are, that they endured in 1800, even the beatings that you sustained during that time, I could see that being passed down to generation to generation. So I just want to add that, because somehow people think, well, that was back then, but everything else back then, there are probably things that we do, even the way I hold my pen is probably exactly the way my great-grandmother in 1772 held a pen. But you think, again, what we talked about earlier is that we started all this training. We were trained decades, centuries ago. We are out of time. I could go on. I had so much more to talk about in terms of crime in the community. You have to come back. But Jerry, if you could go over the details very quickly about the big seminar on this coming Saturday, right?
Yes, this Saturday at 10 a.m. we will start with a panel. The presenters will present for the first hour, and then there will be a time for people to ask questions. And we will have couples. Oh, it's at the Interfaith Church at 42nd and Michigan Road.
Well, I always get that mixed up too. It's actually called the Interchurch Center.
Okay.
Okay.
And the Interfaith organization is located there, but it's 42nd and Michigan Road.
Okay.
And the one big thing that we want to make sure people understand is that this is a free event.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't have to pay. The only thing you have to pay is time and attention.
Yes.
And we're going to feed you for free.
I might have to come. Okay. I got to go. But 10 a.m. to 2:30 p.m.
Yes.
Dave and Jerry Rozelle, thanks so much for joining
Thank you
us
for having
on
us.
Inside Indy. And I'm your host, Kelly Vaughn. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.